The Lumari ship drifted closer to the HSS Everest, its strange design unlike anything Commander Jae-hyun Lee had seen before. Pale blue lights pulsed along its hull, seemingly in rhythm with some unknown power source. Jae-hyun stood tall on the bridge, his dark uniform crisp against the backdrop of blinking monitors and star-filled viewscreens. "Maintain position," he ordered calmly. "Let's see what they want." The human fleet had been patrolling this sector for months, mapping the outer reaches of known space. They hadn't expected to encounter alien vessels this far from established routes. Lieutenant Mina Park worked at her station, her fingers quick and sure. "Sir, I'm receiving a transmission. It's different from standard protocols, but our systems can translate it." "Put it through," Jae-hyun said. The main view screen shifted, revealing a being that made several crew members gasp. The alien had a slender form that seemed almost to glow from within. Its skin was pale blue with faint patterns that shifted like clouds. Large, entirely black eyes dominated a narrow face with no visible nose, just two small slits. When it moved, the motion was fluid, almost like watching water flow. "I am Ambassador Ron of the Lumari Collective," the being said, its voice translated into a melodic, almost singing tone. "We come seeking help." Jae-hyun stepped forward. "This is Commander Lee of the Earth Space Fleet. What kind of help do you need?" The alien's eyes seemed to grow darker. "Sanctuary. Our home systems have been destroyed by the Voidborn. We are refugees, Commander. The last of our kind." A murmur ran through the bridge crew. Jae-hyun raised his hand for silence. "The Voidborn?" he asked. "You have not yet encountered them," Ron said. "Be grateful. They consume worlds, Commander. They strip planets of resources and leave nothing alive. The Galactic Assembly has been powerless to stop their advance." First Officer Juno Kohn moved to Jae-hyun's side. "Sir, we should contact Earth Command before making any decisions." Jae-hyun nodded slightly but kept his eyes on the alien. "Why come to us? The Earth Alliance is new to deep space. Surely there are more established species who could help you." The Lumari's skin rippled with patterns that suggested discomfort. "We have sought help from many. Most fear the Voidborn too much to offer sanctuary. But your species..." Ron paused, seemingly choosing words carefully. "Your species is known to be uniquely resilient. You evolved on what our scientists classify as a Category 5 Deathworld." Several officers exchanged confused glances. Lieutenant Park whispered, "A what?" "Earth is considered exceptionally dangerous by galactic standards," Ron explained, apparently hearing the whisper. "High gravity, extreme temperature variations, unpredictable weather patterns, dangerous wildlife, and toxic elements in your air and water. Few species could survive there, let alone evolve intelligence." Jae-hyun blinked in surprise. Earth had always just been home. He had never thought of it as particularly dangerous. "The Voidborn avoid your territory," Ron continued. "They consider the risk too great for the reward. That makes you unique in this sector." Jae-hyun's communication panel lit up. "Incoming transmission from Admiral Kim," announced the communications officer. "I'll take it in the command room," Jae-hyun said. "Ambassador Ron, please stand by." In the small command room off the bridge, the stern face of Fleet Admiral Daehoon Kim appeared on the screen. "Commander, our analysts have been monitoring your encounter," the Admiral said without greeting. "This could be a first contact situation with significant implications." "Yes, sir. They're asking for sanctuary. From these Voidborn. Do we have any verification of their claims?" Jae-hyun shook his head. "Not yet, sir. But their ship shows signs of damage consistent with weapons fire, and our scans detect very few life forms aboard for a vessel that size." Admiral Kim's expression remained neutral, but his eyes showed concern. "The diplomatic complications could be extensive. If we help these refugees, we could find ourselves in conflict with an enemy we know nothing about." "And if we turn them away?" Jae-hyun asked quietly. The Admiral was silent for a moment. "That would not be consistent with our values, Commander." He sighed. Grant them temporary sanctuary. Keep them in the outer system until we can verify their story. I'll inform Earth Command and prepare for their arrival. Jae-hyun returned to the bridge and faced the waiting alien. Ambassador Ron, the Earth fleet will provide sanctuary to your people, at least until we can better understand your situation. The patterns on Ron's skin shifted to something bright and flowing. Thank you, Commander. The Lamari will not forget this kindness. As the transmission ended, Jae-hyun couldn't help but wonder what it meant that his homeworld, the only planet humans had known for millennia, was considered one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy. And what that said about humanity itself. The small green fern sat innocently on a shelf in the makeshift embassy aboard the HSS Everest. To human eyes, it was just a touch of home, a simple plant to soften the metallic walls of the spacecraft. To Tlen, the Lamari representative, it was a monster. Please, remove that specimen at once. Tlen's luminescent skin pulsed with alarming red patterns as he backed away, thin arms crossing protectively over his chest cavity. Chief Medical Officer Jae-woo Choi glanced between the plant and the alien, trying not to smile. After 3 weeks of hosting the Lamari refugees, the crew was still discovering new incompatibilities. It's just a houseplant, Jae-woo said gently. Completely harmless. Tlen's large dark eyes blinked rapidly. To you, perhaps. Your biology evolved alongside such aggressive flora. The microscopic spores could damage our respiratory systems. Jae-woo immediately became serious and stepped forward to remove the fern. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. Ambassador Ron entered the room, moving with the graceful, flowing motion characteristic of the Lamari. Please do not blame yourself, Doctor. There are many such differences between our peoples that we are still discovering. This was an understatement. Accommodating the refugees had proven extremely challenging. The Lamari could not breathe Earth's oxygen-rich air without filters. They found human normal gravity painful. Even the electromagnetic fields generated by standard equipment caused them discomfort. In the main engineering bay, Captain Hyun Woo-song wiped sweat from his forehead as he examined the blueprints for the fleet's newest modifications. We need to reduce gravity in sections C through F to 0.6 Earth standard, he told his team. And install the new air scrubbers to remove nitrogen levels. Engineer Ben looked up from his workstation. Sir, if we do that, those sections will be uncomfortable for human crew. Then we'll rotate duty assignments, Hyunwoo replied simply. No one stays in low-grav for more than 4 hours at a time. The engineering teams had been working round-the-clock shifts to modify sections of the fleet for Lamari physiology. 3 ships had been completely converted to serve as refugee housing, with special lighting, reduced gravity, and air composition closer to the Lamari homeworld. In the medical bay, Jae-woo carefully examined the data on her tablet. The Lamari physiology was fascinating. They processed energy differently than humans, absorbing certain wavelengths of light through their skin to supplement their nutrition. Their blood was based on copper rather than iron, giving it a bluish tint. And their bones were flexible, almost cartilage-like. I think I've found something, she told her assistant. This protein structure might help them better adapt to our environment without side effects. A young Lamari child named Eli sat on the exam table, skin glowing with gentle blue patterns. Unlike human children, Lamari young were nearly silent, communicating more through light patterns than sound. Jae-woo had learned that bright blue meant curiosity. Would you like to try this new medicine? She asked Eli, showing a small patch. It might help you feel better when you visit the human sections. Eli's skin flashed agreement, and Jae-woo carefully applied the patch to the child's arm. In a different part of the ship, Commander Jae-hyun was introducing Ambassador Ron to Earth Customs. They sat at a table with a chessboard between them. The goal is to trap the opponent's king, Jae-hyun explained, moving pieces to demonstrate. Ron studied the board with intense focus. A war simulation, then? More of a strategy game, Jae-hyun corrected. It teaches planning and foresight. Before Ron could respond, the door slid open. Lieutenant Mina Park rushed in, her usually composed face tight with concern. Sir, we've detected 3 vessels entering the system, she reported. They matched the description of Voidborn ships. Jae-hyun stood immediately. How long until they reach us? 2 hours at current speed. They're already broadcasting. They're demanding we surrender the Lumari refugees. Ron's skin turned almost colorless with fear. They found us so quickly. Jae-hyun touched his communicator. Admiral Kim, we have a situation. Within minutes, the command center buzzed with activity. Fleet Admiral Daehoon Kim stood before the main view screen, which showed 3 black, angular ships approaching. They looked almost like giant arrowheads, with no visible windows or external lights. The message played again: human vessels, this is Commander Vex of the Voidborn Collective. You harbor criminals and fugitives. Surrender the Lumari immediately or face the consequences of interfering in matters beyond your understanding. The voice was flat, emotionless, processed through translation software but still chilling. Admiral Kim's face showed no fear, only determination. His response was immediate and required no consultation. Tell them no, he said. Lieutenant Mina's hands trembled slightly as she sent the response. Sir, they're accelerating. Alert all ships. Move the civilian vessels to the center of our formation. Prepare defensive positions. The Admiral turned to Ron. We gave our word. We will protect your people. As crew members raced to battle stations, the enormity of what was happening sank in. Humanity's first interstellar conflict was about to begin, defending aliens they barely knew against an enemy they didn't understand. The standoff had begun. The red alert siren screamed through the corridors of the HSS Everest. Commander Jae-hyun Lee gripped the edge of the command console as the ship shuddered from a nearby explosion. They came out of nowhere, Lieutenant Nina Park reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. 3 more Voidborn ships just appeared on our flank. The view screen showed the impossible black ships materializing directly from hyperspace, their weapons already firing. According to all known physics, ships needed time to stabilize after a jump. The Voidborn apparently didn't follow those rules. All hands to battle stations. Jae-hyun ordered, his voice carrying through the ship's communication system. Civilian ships to the center of the formation. Around the Everest, the rest of the human fleet moved with practiced precision. The refugee ships, carrying thousands of Lumari survivors, were quickly surrounded by the more heavily armed Earth vessels. Admiral Kim's face appeared on a side screen. Commander, we need to buy time for the civilians to prepare for an emergency jump. Understood, sir. Jae-hyun turned to his tactical officer. Release countermeasures. All ships, execute pattern Delta. The human fleet suddenly broke apart in what seemed like confusion but was actually a carefully orchestrated dance. Ships moved in seemingly random directions, creating a chaotic pattern that made targeting difficult. On the Lumari refugee ship, Ambassador Ron watched the battle unfold with growing amazement. Next to him, Plen gripped a support rail as their ship accelerated. This is impossible, Plen whispered. The humans are engaging directly? They should be fleeing. Indeed, instead of retreating, the human fleet was actively challenging the Voidborn. Their ships, which the Lumari had initially considered primitive compared to other galactic powers, displayed maneuverability that defied expectations. Look at how they move, Ron said, pointing at the tactical display. No other species would dare fly so close to enemy weapons. A human officer approached them. Ambassador, please move to the inner chambers. We're executing evasive maneuvers that might affect artificial gravity. On the Everest, Jae-hyun received a direct communication from Commander Tae-yeon Kang, leader of the fleet's Special Operations Unit. Sir, we have an opportunity, Tae-yeon said, his face grim on the screen. The Voidborn command ship's shields fluctuate when they fire their main cannon. We could board during that window. Jae-hyun stared at him. Board an enemy vessel? During active combat? My team is ready. We need intelligence on their capabilities, sir. After a brief consultation with Admiral Kim, the mission was approved. Jae-hyun watched from the bridge as a small stealth craft detached from one of the fleet destroyers, its hull designed to absorb rather than reflect sensor beams. Taeyang led 6 soldiers, all wearing the newest version of Earth's combat exoskeletons. The suits were designed for extreme environments, a necessity for a species that explored worlds many aliens considered uninhabitable. Their craft slipped through the chaos of battle, timing its approach to coincide with the command ship's next weapons discharge. When the moment came, they attached to the hull and cut their way inside. What they found inside shocked even these hardened soldiers. The atmosphere was heavy with gases that their suits identified as toxic. Radiation levels were far beyond what most species could survive. The interior was hot, nearly 150 degrees Fahrenheit. How could anything live in this? Whispered Specialist Juno, checking his scanner. Their biology must be radically different from ours, Taeyang replied, moving forward cautiously. They encountered their first Voidborn minutes later. The alien was tall, with an exoskeleton that seemed almost metallic. Its forearms ended in tool-like appendages, and its head had no eyes that they could recognize, just sensory pits arranged in a circle. The team moved through the ship, collecting data and placing small devices on what appeared to be critical systems. When alarms began to sound, they knew their presence had been discovered. Time to go, Taeyang ordered. Their extraction was as violent as their insertion. With Voidborn soldiers in pursuit, the team fought their way back to their craft. 2 soldiers were injured, but all made it aboard. From the refugee ship, Ron watched in awe as the small human craft burst from the side of the Voidborn vessel, weaving through enemy fire to rejoin the fleet. They sent people onto a Voidborn ship, he asked the human officer in disbelief. How could they survive the environment? Standard hazard suits, the officer replied with a shrug, as if boarding enemy vessels was routine. The human fleet, having created enough confusion to cover the civilian evacuation, executed a coordinated hyperspace jump. The maneuver required split-second timing, but every ship made it safely. Hours later, in the relative safety of deep space, Admiral Kim called a meeting of senior officers and Lumari representatives. The data Commander Taeyang's team collected is invaluable, he told them, displaying analysis of the Voidborn ship. We now understand their weapons systems and some of their biology. They evolved in environments we would consider extremely hostile. Ironic, Ambassador Ron said. They think the same of your worlds. Admiral Kim nodded soberly. This victory is temporary. We've learned they can track Lumari energy signatures across vast distances. We can't run forever. He looked around the table at his officers. We need a permanent solution. We need to take this to the Galactic Assembly. Jaehyun understood what that meant. Earth had maintained a cautious relationship with the Assembly, carefully managing their image among the older spacefaring civilizations. This would change everything. Our fleet alone can't stand against their full might, Admiral Kim continued. But we can make a case for a united response. As the meeting ended, Ron approached Jaehyun. Why did you risk your people for us? We are strangers to you. Jaehyun considered the question seriously. Because it was right, he finally said. And because someday, we might need friends among the stars too. The Galactic Assembly Station hung in space like a giant wheel, its outer ring spinning slowly to create gravity. Inside the Grand Chamber, hundreds of beings from across the galaxy gathered. Some floated in special tanks. Others needed breathing masks. Some had many limbs, while others had none at all. Admiral Daehoon Kim stood tall before them. He wore his formal Earth Fleet uniform with its blue and gold trim. Behind him stood Commander Jaehyun Lee, Captain Hyunwoo Song, and Earth's chief diplomat, Ambassador Jisa Lee. We bring evidence of crimes against sentient life, Admiral Kim said. His voice was strong and clear as the chamber's translation system converted his words into dozens of different languages. The central display showed images collected from Taeyang's mission and from Lumari survivors. Planets stripped of resources. Cities in ruins. Medical scans of Lumari who had suffered under Voidborn attacks. Ambassador Ron stood with them, his skin glowing pale with sorrow as the records of his people's suffering played for all to see. The huge chamber was completely silent. Many representatives looked away from the terrible images. Others watched with wide eyes or sensing organs. When the presentation ended, Admiral Kim spoke again. The Voidborn Collective represents a threat to all peaceful species. The Lamari are nearly extinct because of their attacks. Earth has granted them sanctuary, but we seek the Assembly's support in stopping the Voidborn's expansion. A tall, insect-like being stepped forward. This was Counselor Velm of the Trotax, one of the oldest spacefaring species in the galaxy. While we sympathize with the Lamari, Velm said, mandibles clicking softly, we cannot risk provoking the Voidborn Collective further. Their technology exceeds our own in many areas. They control key resource systems. A direct confrontation would lead to more suffering, not less. Admiral Kim frowned, but before he could speak, Ambassador Jasa Lee stepped forward. She was smaller than the Admiral but moved with quiet confidence. Perhaps you misunderstand our position, she said, her voice soft but carrying to every corner of the chamber. We're not asking for permission. The chamber erupted in whispers and translator devices struggled to keep up with dozens of languages being spoken at once. Several representatives rose from their seats in surprise. Jisoo waited for the noise to settle before continuing. Earth will stand as sanctuary for the displaced. We merely extend the courtesy of informing you. The round-bodied representative from the Pelex Confederation wobbled forward on short legs. Humans, you are newcomers to the galactic community. You do not understand the danger. The Voidborn have destroyed species far more advanced than yours. We understand danger very well, Jisoo replied. Our homeworld has taught us about danger since before we could speak. Commander Jaehyun stepped forward to stand beside her. The Lamari call Earth a Category 5 Deathworld. We've been told that most of you would die within hours on our planet due to the gravity, bacteria, radiation, and predators. Is this true? The chamber grew quiet again. Many representatives shifted uncomfortably. What you call extreme danger, we call home, Jaehyun continued. Humans have evolved to survive conditions most species consider impossible. We don't fear the Voidborn. We pity them for making enemies of us. A tall, ethereal being with 6 arms spoke next. This was Counselor Neem of the Falari. You would risk your entire species for aliens you barely know? The Lamari have nothing to offer you in return. Their technology, while advanced, is not unique. Their resources are gone. Why take such a risk for them? Captain Hyunwoo stepped forward. Unlike the others, he smiled as he addressed the assembly. It's what humans do. The simple statement confused many of the alien representatives. Their translators struggled to convey the deeper meaning behind his words. Ambassador Jisoo elaborated, throughout our history, even before we reached the stars, humans have sheltered those in need. We call it compassion, and we consider it one of our greatest strengths, not a weakness. Admiral Kim raised his hand, and the display changed to show Earth's solar system. We have prepared defenses. We have studied the Voidborn and identified weaknesses in their ships and biology. Earth may be young among spacefaring civilizations, but we are not helpless. The real question, Jaehyun added, is not whether Earth will help the Lamari. We already have. The question is whether the Assembly will join us in stopping the Voidborn, or whether you will wait until they come for your worlds next. Counselor Velm's antennae twitched nervously. This is most irregular. The Assembly operates by consensus. We need time to consider. While you consider, Jisoo interrupted, more worlds burn. More refugees are created. The Voidborn grow stronger with each system they strip. Ambassador Ron's skin glowed brighter as he stepped forward. I was like you once. I believed diplomacy could solve any problem. I believed the Assembly would protect us. His voice grew harder. I was wrong. The humans offered help when no one else would. They risked their lives for strangers. That is the kind of ally the galaxy needs. A low hum filled the chamber as representatives discussed among themselves. Admiral Kim watched them carefully. He knew that the Assembly's support would make their task easier, but Earth would stand with or without them. We will return tomorrow for your answer, he told them. But know this, Earth has already decided its path. We hope you will join us on it. As the human delegation left the chamber, many representatives followed them with their eyes, wondering if they were witnessing the birth of a new power in the galaxy or the beginning of another tragedy. Morning sunlight streamed through the special filtered windows of the training facility near Busan. This place had once been a human military base, but now it housed something unique in Earth's history, the first multi-species defense force. Major Ji-hoon Bae watched as 30 Lamari practiced hand-to-hand combat moves adapted for their lighter frames and flexible bodies. Their skin glowed with varying shades of blue and green as they exerted themselves. Next to them, human soldiers demonstrated the movements at full Earth gravity. You must keep your center of balance lower, Ji-hoon called out. Your bodies are lighter than ours, but you can use that as an advantage. 6 months had passed since Earth had declared itself a sanctuary for refugee species. The Galactic Assembly had been shocked by humanity's boldness, but several species had secretly reached out to form alliances. Some even sent their own refugees when the Voidborn expanded into their territories. Earth had become known throughout the galaxy as the Refuge world. Ironically, the very conditions that made Earth dangerous to most alien species also deterred Voidborn incursions. The high gravity, aggressive bacteria, and variable climate created natural defenses. Ji-hoon approached a Lamari named Tail, who was struggling with a particular move. Watch again, he said kindly. Use your flexibility. Your joints bend differently than ours. Tail's skin flickered with determination as he tried again, successfully completing the defensive maneuver. Good. Ji-hoon smiled. Again. You're improving. From the sidelines, Ambassador Ron watched with Admiral Daehoon Kim and Commander Jae-hyun Lee. Ron's skin patterns showed thoughtful contemplation. My people are changing, Ron said quietly. 6 months ago, none of us would have considered physical combat. We were scholars and artists. Adaptation is survival, Admiral Kim replied. Humans understand this well. Jae-hyun nodded. Your people have taught us too. The new shield technology your engineers developed has been installed on all our major ships. This exchange of knowledge had been happening across Earth. Lamari scientists worked with human engineers, combining their different perspectives to create new technologies. Lamari artists introduced new forms of light-based art that captivated human audiences. Human medical researchers helped develop treatments to help the Lamari better adapt to Earth conditions. In orbit, the combined human Lumari fleet conducted battle drills. Ships from 3 other species had joined them, creating the core of what people now call the Deathworld Coalition. The warning came just as the sun rose the next day. Admiral. Lieutenant Nina's voice cut through the early morning briefing. Long-range sensors have detected multiple hyperspace signatures approaching the solar system. It's them. The Voidborn. All eyes turned to the main display. Dozens of black ships were appearing at the edge of the system. How many? Admiral Kim asked calmly. 47 vessels, sir. Including what appears to be their command carrier. The room fell silent. This was 3 times larger than any Voidborn fleet they had encountered before. Admiral Kim straightened his uniform. Sound the alarm. All ships to defense positions. Activate the orbital platforms. Within minutes, the evacuation of civilian areas began. Across Earth, people moved to underground shelters. In space, the Coalition fleet formed a protective barrier between the approaching enemy and the planet. From the command center of the rebuilt HSS Everest, Admiral Kim addressed the combined forces. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the right of all species to exist without fear, he said, his voice carrying to every ship and base. The Voidborn believe in taking whatever they want from those they consider weak. Today, we show them the strength of unity. The battle began with an exchange of long-range weapons fire. Voidborn energy beams lashed out, only to be absorbed by the new Lumari-designed shields. Commander Jae-hyun coordinated the fighter response from the Everest. Formation Delta. Target their propulsion systems first. The smaller human ships darted between the massive Voidborn vessels, their maneuverability confusing the enemy targeting systems. Meanwhile, ships from the Kalari species, recent allies with crystalline technology, launched specialized disruptors designed to interfere with voidborne sensors. What the voidborne hadn't expected was the evolution of Lamari technology enhanced by human ingenuity. The peaceful Lamari had never developed weapons, but their deep understanding of biology had helped create targeted systems that affected voidborne physiology directly. When the specialized electromagnetic pulses hit the voidborne ships, the aliens inside experienced intense disorientation. Their communication systems broke down. "It's working," Nina reported, watching the sensor readings. "Their ships are losing formation." The battle was devastating but brief. 7 coalition ships were destroyed, but the voidborne fleet was broken. As their command carrier retreated into hyperspace, the remaining enemy ships followed. Earth had won its first major victory against the voidborne. 3 days later, the Galactic Assembly convened an emergency session. With evidence of the coalition's success, many more species pledged support. What had begun as Earth's solitary stand had grown into a galactic movement. The Assembly formally recognized the Deathworld Coalition as a new power in the galaxy, with humanity at its center. 1 week after the battle, Jaehyun found Ambassador Ron on the observation deck of the Everest, watching a sunset over the Pacific Ocean. The sky blazed with orange and pink light. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Jaehyun asked, joining him at the viewport. "Different from the skies of my homeworld," Ron replied. "But yes, beautiful in its own way." Below them, Earth continued its daily rhythm. In cities around the world, humans and aliens worked together, learning from each other, building something new. "You know," Jaehyun said with a small smile, "for a death world, it's not so bad." Ron's luminescent skin glowed slightly brighter, their equivalent of a smile. "No. Not bad at all." In the darkness of space beyond them, the lights of Allied ships patrolled, a symbol of their shared purpose. What had begun as a desperate plea for sanctuary had become the foundation of something greater, proof that even in the harshest environments, compassion could thrive. The end.